This recording is protected by copyright. No part may be reproduced without the prior permission of the University of South Australia.
Colleen Lazenby is Chair of the Heritage Committee of the Royal Agricultural Society of Victoria. The title of her presentation is Voices in Victoria's Agricultural Heritage, and the purpose of the presentation is to explain the oral history archive that the Royal Agricultural Society of Victoria has been building up over the last few years through an interview program. The hope had been to show you some visual evidence of that achievement. We do have the cover of the DVD, and we have a PowerPoint.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we give these papers. I have the very, very good fortune to be the chair of the Royal Agricultural Society of Victoria's Heritage Committee. And in that role, we've been commissioning oral histories. I've been very fortunate also since I moved here in 1991 to be able to commission a lot of oral histories. History of the Shire of Pakenham in Victoria, a one-year heritage capture for the Dandenong livestock market when it closed. My own professional oral history practice is with Indians and Eskimos in Alaska. Royal Agricultural Society of Victoria had a heritage committee some time ago, and it became quite moribund, and there was actually a very difficult period for the Melbourne Showground when it was redeveloped in 2006, in which they lost significant heritage buildings, and they just weren't quite focused on their heritage, I think I can say in a sort of ambiguous way. But about 5 years ago, the Heritage Committee was revitalized, and I was asked to join 4 years ago, and a couple of years ago I was asked to be the chair. It is a committee of all volunteers, and most of the people on the committee when I got there were very well-known Victorian agriculturalists, and it had that distribution of interests that you know about agriculture. There was the horse person, there was the cattle person, there was the sheep person, there was the arts and crafts person. And what they realized is that they needed to recruit some heritage professionals if they were going to advance what they wanted to do. So they recruited me. I recruited Michael Tanta, whom some of you may know, also an oral historian, and two historians, Stephen Cartwright and Tim Morgan, whose father had written the history of the RASV. I just want to, now that I have all this extra time, go through these slides and say that this is such a good news story, and I have found such a receptive number of individuals inside the organization, and that includes the staff and the CEO, as well as a board of agriculturalists as well. 9 volunteers. One thing that we have access to is all the support of the society as we do our heritage projects. And in the last year and a half, my committee has been successful in hiring one permanent part-time curator, Dr. Annette Shield, whom you may know. She works 2 days a week, but we had so much money to do, and I had argued for enough budget that we were also able to hire a temporary person for 2 years named Angela Bailey. Hello. Hi, Suzanne. And we effectively have an historian of one sort or another 4 days a week, where previously there was no one, and it's been wonderful. And they have very complementary skills, Annette and Angela. We call them the A-team. There is, do you want?
You can't get a film to work?
Correct. It's an MP4 file, and yep, I might just keep talking in that case. We do have a heritage policy, and that policy was written in 1999, and that was, sorry, these are snippets. Let's just do this while we can actually get it up. These are excerpts from a few of the oral histories, and this was a sort of a promotional film, and I'll get back to that we showed to the board after 2 years of special funding. We'll get to the good news story after that. Go ahead. You might know Hugh Worth, veterinarian, National RSPCA president.
John Worth. I'm a Melburnian, born and bred here, and I went through the usual schooling and became a veterinarian.
Well, my full name is Eleanor Kathleen Metherell. I don't use Eleanor if I can help it. And I went to my first show as a 5-year-old. And
I'm Bill Managee. I'm the second generation that showed here, and we've shown here since about 1950, 51, I think was when we started. My father started.
Brian Leslie, auctioneer with DLS. Melbourne Show has certainly been a part of my life for a long time. I started going to the Melbourne Show as a small boy with my family watching, but then my first year of actually staying in the showgrounds was in 1976. I was 12 and I helped the late Bert Anderson with his Kingview Jersey team.
Donald James Simpson. I've been involved with the Royal Show since 1933, and each year, apart from wartime, I've attended every show right up till 2011.
I'm Murphy. I commenced work with the RAS on the 6th of January 1954.
My name is Harley John Clapperson. I joined the Royal Agricultural Society on the 1st of July 1971.
My name's Lindsay Anderson. I come from Athlone in Victoria now. Family's been involved with the show for well over 100 years now. Involvement's been with jerseys all this lifetime.
Well, my name is Mary de Crepney. I was Mary Bartram when I did most of my riding. I rode in my first Melbourne show in 1929, which was a bit frightening. And I was 4 and a bit, or 3 and a bit, I can't remember, 3 and a bit. And I've been involved with the show ever since. And it's what you do in September.
Michael Burston.
I'll just end it there. We've done 30 interviews over 2 years, and this we call it the Talking Heads video. It has 15. We wanted to show the board what an oral history looked like because many people don't know what an oral history is, as you know. There was a heritage policy already, and I felt very fortunate that that was the case, but there was a very non-strategic view of how to do heritage underneath this heritage policy. So what we wanted to aim for under our strategic plan, and as soon as we had a strategic plan, we could ask for an annual budget. We also negotiated to have half of the proceeds of wine sales from the Melbourne Wine Show as our special fund. So not only do we have an annual recurrent budget, and we've been able to increase it every year, but we also got them to endorse giving us this extra money. It's been fantastic. These are some of the strategic aims we had, and one of the special projects that we wanted to talk to the board about was an oral history project. Michael Tanta wrote a proposal to the board that over 3 years they give us funding from the society's budget, not our annual recurrent budget, to interview 10 people every year for $30,000 over 3 years. We took the proposal to the board and presented it, and in a move that surprised me a little bit, they said, oh, this is hugely important. We'll give you $30,000 over 2 years. Do you think you can interview 15 people every year? We said, yes, 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 of course we can. We hired the wonderful consultants that way back when, Catherine Sheedy and Sarah Rood. I can't say enough good things about them. Yes, we included money to do transcripts for those of you who are in this morning's session. They are videotaped, they are audio taped. There's a separate videographer. There's a travel budget in there so that Sarah or Catherine can go to the home of the participant, and that's all over Victoria. So we have a significant travel budget. Many of these people are elderly, and we made a conscious decision to interview some of the more urgent cases first. Our aim is, first of all, to set up a new a new archive in our heritage collection. And I need to tell you that the heritage collection of the RASV was in shipping containers out on the site when I got there. And I said, and the first thing we'll be doing is bringing that into the premises. Thank you very much. So they immediately built us beautiful heritage rooms and display windows. So this is really quite a good news story, one part of which is oral history. But one of the things I want to emphasize about this is that the board in particular has driven all of this heritage work with their constant approval of what we wanted to do. The committee of 9 people is, on balance, very knowledgeable about agricultural history and heritage. And initially, the committee put together a list of 35 people who needed to be interviewed in a critical fashion and for critical reasons in some cases. And I'd have to say that sadly, 2 of our participants died just weeks after we interviewed them. And we tried to fit under the themes in the heritage policy someone into any one of a number of themes. So the Royal Melbourne Show is a theme. The organization itself is a theme, but horses are a theme. Animals are a general theme. Sideshows are a theme. The Showgirls competition, now no longer taking place, is a theme. And so we worked very carefully to try and cover off as many different themes as we could. The RASV owns 13 shows of one sort or another, including the Melbourne Wine Show. Wolf Blass is a 4-time winner of the prestigious Jimmy Watson Awards. So we interviewed Wolf Blass about being a vintner coming here from Germany. And there's some really fantastic stories in here. Those are our objectives. Then one of the things that we did was Michael and I presented to the board after the 2-year period in which we had interviewed 30 people, and we said to the board, thank you, it's been absolutely wonderful. What we want to do in our annual budget from now on is continue this process, and we'd like to interview 3 more people every year. And they said no. We went, they said, no, this is really, really important, and we want to give you money to interview 10 people every year from now on. Oh, that's fantastic. So we'll be able to do a few things with that. We'll be able to bring in some of the people who might have been lower down on the list because the urgency was not so great. But one of the things we want to do is we want to start interviewing some young people. There's a very strong focus on young farmers, young handlers, children's camps with cattle. We want to start interviewing probably a young agriculturalist and follow him or her through his career at perhaps 5-year intervals or maybe even 3-year intervals, that kind of thing. But one of the things we were able to do was there's an exhibition space that they've built for us. We installed a video monitor. We have the Talking Heads video up, and the Talking Heads video has excerpts from longer excerpts from 4 really great interviews as well. Monitor in the foyer, speakers in the ceiling, beautiful pictures of some of the people interviewed, quite heroic, wonderful pictures. And so people who go into the RASV headquarters get to listen to oral history while they're waiting to go into meetings. It's very good. We've just had a luncheon for the first 30, and we thought it was going to be the end of the program. We thought it would be to celebrate the wonderful 3 years and the 30 wonderful interviews, and the families of those 2 people who passed away came to that luncheon. We invited the board, all of the counselors. I'm one of 13 chairs of committees, and you can imagine that the other committees are event committees. So the chair of horses deals with horse events. The chair of dairy cattle deals with the dairy show. And then and so all of those chairs were invited. And we have contacted all of those people who have other volunteer and staff roles at the Society now with a letter that is saying, please nominate people that you think should be interviewed to a pool, and we will start to interview from that pool. We thought the luncheon would be the end of a great program, but of course it is the launch of the permanent program, and that's been quite wonderful. Very, very emotional luncheon. People who had not seen each other for many years saw each other again, but they felt treasured, they felt honored, and they felt a part of something new and quite wonderful that represents sometimes not just their role, but the 4, 3, sometimes 2 generations of their family who've been involved in Victorian agriculture. And that's been just wonderful. We now have, what are we going to do with these oral histories? Because it's nice to have an archive, but we're doing a number of things. First of all, we have just developed a new heritage section of the RASV website, and we're going to provide access to the oral histories via that website as transcripts and possibly as edited, perhaps full interviews. But we also have money in our budget now every year to produce 2 short videos around themes using the oral histories and objects from the collection, whether it's trophies or sashes or photographs. We have wonderful photographic collections. The RASV has its records from moment one. It has everything there. It's just wonderful. So we want to use this as an educational resource. And one of the things that we found people talking about as we talked about history and heritage is that thing that I'm sure you've all heard. Young people don't know where milk comes from. They think it comes from the refrigerator or Woolworths. They don't understand it comes from a cow. Young people don't understand the whole purpose of animals as meat, that issue. So the first 2 videos are aimed in a very generic way at the following. There are 2 kinds of sheep, sheep for wool and sheep for meat. There are 2 kinds of cattle, beef cattle and dairy cattle. And we have wonderful oral history excerpts that from people who've been involved in those sheep and cattle industries. And we will do 2 videos every year. We'll put them up on the website, but it also will be the beginning of what we're calling the Agricultural Heritage Series at the show, where we're going to have a little sort of film festival about agricultural heritage using the oral history stuff. We will do one next year, which is the 80th anniversary of the Gary Owen horse event about the Gary Owen, and we have interviewed a number of winners. And we also, we know a number of families privately said that they were going to hire our oral historians to do private oral histories with members of their family. I thought that was a really great outcome of that. And let's see, what else have I got here? Yes, gosh. Yes, I think I can do that. These are some of my observations, or our observations and outcomes as a committee. They won't be any surprise to you. We have a fantastic new archive. We'll be able to educate to the broader constituency of people. It is a very leadership role for the RASV as a board and as a society. We want to work with regional show societies to show them how easy it is to do oral history. And I was really interested in listening to the peer-to-peer paper this morning. I think that would be quite a fantastic thing to do in regional Victoria. But it particularly highlights the role of regional and rural Victoria in building the agricultural heritage, not just of Victoria, but of the country, and that's been really valuable learning. A whole bunch of other themes came out of the oral histories that, as you might imagine, we're going to pursue those. And our next project will be what we're calling the oral history booth at next year's show. We're going to create a soundproof booth where people can go in and talk about what the show means to them, what it might have meant to their family, so we can catch a sort of a public oral history in just short clips where people talk to a screen, and we'll see what we can do with that. Questions? Yes, ma'am?
Goes back to the concept of the budget.
They want to throw money at it. Oh, no.
Anyway, so is it just that society has access to large amounts of money? Is it coming from the society?
Comes from the society, and it's special board funding. So over and above the recurrent budget for my committee, it is a special funding that they have told the CEO they want put into heritage. It's not a wildly wealthy society, but it's also not, it's not scratching for funds. They just decided to prioritize history. And can I say it's a bit of a strategy in how our committee presented it to them. And can I say 3 members of the board are on my committee, and I use that to my advantage. Jack Gray and Lindsay Anderson, multi-generational cattle farmers. Valerie Fisher, a country girl, a city girl who moved to the country when she married someone, and she became the international president of the CWA. There's Hugh Worth right there. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Other questions?